and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lisbeth, aka Mama Mushroom, for all of you who are new to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to draw dynamic action poses. You know I make manga and comics for a living, so being able to draw poses as quickly and accurately as possible is a super useful skill. But before you can draw a pose like this, you need to be able to draw the basics. So that's what we're going to be doing today. First, we're going to draw some full frontal poses, and then take what we've learned and apply it to drawing some action poses. So without further ado, let's get started. Step 1, anatomy basics. So first we're going to draw some full frontals of both men and women so that we can learn some realistic proportions and the basics of anatomy and proportions. I'm a very big believer that before you develop your own style, you need to learn the basics of real life anatomy and proportions. So first we're going to map out the proportions. Make a little line for the top of the head, a line for the bottom of the feet, and somewhere in the middle is where the groin will go. This will help you figure out where to draw the legs. However, for anime and manga, the groin is a little bit higher up. That way the legs can be longer and the torso can be shorter. The next thing I'm going to teach you is super helpful for drawing anime and manga especially, but women are usually 6 heads in height. What am I even talking about? If you were to measure the height of a woman's head and multiply that by 6, that's the height of the average woman. Have you ever seen in old-timey cartoons where there's like an artist and they have their arm extended and they're holding a pencil? What they're doing is measuring the model's height. So no matter what style you're drawing, being able to measure proportions via the heads is a super useful technique, guys. But when thinking of the torso, try to picture 2 eggs stacked on top of each other. This will be super helpful for you. So while drawing the full frontal person, draw your 2 little eggs for the torso. Everyone's body is a little bit different, so if they have a shorter torso, we're going to draw some shorter eggs. If they have a longer torso, some longer eggs, so on and so forth. Now I'm mapping out the limbs. So for both the arms and the legs, the very top part that connects to the torso, I make some larger circles. The knees and elbows will be some medium-sized circles, and the wrists and ankles will be the tiny circles. This is going to be super important in just a few seconds. So, once we do all of this, then I go in and I start connecting the sides of the circles to create the basic thickness of the arms and legs, and I follow the curves of the 2 eggs that I drew for the torso. Did you see that? So let's do it again with the legs. I just connect the sides of the circles to create the thickness of the legs. So now I'm going to do this again, but with a manga character. So 2 eggs for the torso. You see how much smaller the eggs are for the manga character? We do some larger circles for the tops of the legs, medium circles for the knees, and tiny circles for the ankles. Same thing with the arms. But do you see how I'm drawing out the torso? I'm actually following the curves of the eggs that I drew out. And for the legs, there's a little bit of a curve to the thigh and the calf because I am keeping in mind there's a little bit of muscle definition. And when you look at the real person on the left, you are going to see a little bit of a curve to her legs because of her muscle definition. Now for the arms, I did the same thing. A big circle for the shoulders, medium circle for the elbow, tiny circle for the wrist. And I just connect the sides of all the circles to create the basic proportions of her arm. Here's some guidelines to help you guys out. Now, let's do the same thing for this gentleman here. So a line for the top of the head, a line for the bottom of the feet, and somewhere in the middle, that's more or less where his groin's going to go. Let's start off with 2 eggs for his torso. Again, everyone's torso is a little bit different, so you may have 2 different size eggs. It all really depends on the type of torso that you want. 2 large circles for the top of the thighs, medium circles for the knees, and little circles for the ankles. Same thing for the arms, big circles for the shoulders, medium circles for the elbows, and little circles for the wrists. And draw out his neck, a little bit of shoulder muscle definition, but now I'm going to go in and just add a little detail to his shoulders. Notice that I also drew in his collarbones, a little bit of his pecs, and I followed the curves of the eggs to create a little pinch in the torso. And for the legs, you just connect the sides of the circles to each other. But keep in mind that the thigh and the calves have a little bit of a curve to them because of the muscle definition. I am going to treat his arm a little bit different than the ladies because I do want to have a little bit more muscle definition. Some lean muscle, but I still want a little bit of muscle definition. And remember, there's a little bit of a bend in the wrist when the arms are relaxed in this position. A little bit of a chiseled jawline. Now for the proportions of the face, I have an entire video on this where I show you my half rule, which will help you every single time you want to know where the eyes, nose, and mouth goes. I have a video on how to draw faces in different angles and tons of different expressions. I'll have the link to both of these videos down there in the description box below. And here's some guidelines to help you out. And now for the moment you guys have been waiting for, the action poses. So what really helps me out when drawing really complicated poses is breaking down the body into basic shapes, such as triangles and squares and all that good stuff. So we are going to be doing that a lot while drawing out these poses. Keep in mind all the anatomy and proportion goodness that we did cover earlier in this video, and really look at these reference photos and try to find the different shapes to really help you map out the poses. Of course, I started out with the head and the 2 eggs for the torso. When you draw the 2 eggs together, you want to follow the curves for the pinch of the torso as well as the legs. I drew some lines to help me figure out the angle of the shoulders and the angle of the hips. I looked at the legs and kind of drew out a little triangle because I am seeing a bit of a wedge between her thighs there. And then a little oblong shape between her 2 calves. So I'm mapping that out on the reference and then redrawing it in my sketch. You see that? Techniques like this really help you break down a complicated pose like this. And of course, when it comes to drawing a leg in a perspective like this, you do have to remember that the thigh is overlapping the calf. Do your best to keep the perspective of the limbs in mind at all times. The leg is in a slight angle. You see that? So I did draw a little line beside the knee to overlap the calf, and a little line at the ankle overlapping the foot to show the perspective. And you see how we can't really see the arm to the left? The upper arm and the shoulder are not in this photo at all. However, when you are drawing your guidelines, you can still draw out where her shoulder and upper arm is. Almost like if she's a little see-through, you know what I mean? Like you still want to draw all of that there so that you know that where you are drawing the arm is in the correct place. So even if you can't see parts of the body, still try to draw it anyway, so that you can make sure that everything lines up the way it's supposed to. And here she is, guys! Pose number 2 is definitely a pose that you guys will find super useful. It looks simple at first, and it kind of is, but there's little tidbits here and there that will be a touch of a challenge, so it's great practice. So remember guys, line for the top of the head, line for the bottom of the feet, and somewhere in the middle is where the groin will go. And now, using the guidelines that I mapped out on the reference photo, I put in the eggs, I put in the circles for the arms and legs. So that's what I'm recreating in my sketch. So you might see here that I drew a triangle between his legs, and the base of the triangle is at a slight angle. You see that? So I recreated that angle in my sketch. I'm just mapping out his anatomy. And just like we covered earlier today, just follow the edges of the circles to create the overall shape of the limbs. And remember, the thighs have a slight curve to them because of the muscle definition. When using reference, really pay attention to the muscle definition, how the limbs bend. All of this will become a part of your memory, your mental Wikipedia, if you will. And you'll be so surprised how much of the reference photo your brain will hold on to and use in the future. When using real life as reference, your brain really picks up, it absorbs, it learns. And the more you do this, the more you draw from life, you'll begin to realize that when you're drawing from memory, you're recalling details from the photos that you used as reference. And the more familiar you become with drawing from life, the more precise and professional your unique style will become. Here's the finished drawing, guys! Woo! How are you guys feeling so far? Are you having fun? Are you finding these poses to be kind of hard? Let me know in the comments because I would love to do this again with you guys. So on to pose number 3. Once again, line for the top of the head, line for the bottom of the feet, and somewhere in the middle is where the groin will go. I always start off with the head and then 2 eggs for the torso. Now notice the torso is bent, so notice the tilt of the 2 eggs that I drew. I'm making some guidelines for the limbs. And notice how the bent leg creates kind of like a triangular shape. So I am mimicking that shape as well. Now I'm going in, following the curves of the eggs, of the circles for the limbs. And remember, when you are drawing the lines of the torso, make sure to create that little pinch in between the eggs there. The leg overlaps the torso a little bit, so remember to create that little line at the top of the thigh to show that it is overlapping the torso. Remember to accentuate the shape of the thigh a little bit to represent the muscle. The leg is bent and it is clenched, so the muscles are going to show up a little bit more. You got a little pointed foot action happening here. And because we are able to see a little bit of their back, we are able to see a little bit of their tushy. So that's very important to keep in mind because that really helps communicate the angle of the body. And we're also able to see the back of the knee there. So I really want you guys to pay attention to this little sketch right here. Here is a side view of a leg. So the front of the thigh curves, the back of the thigh is flat. The front of the calf is flat, the back of the calf is curved. So you kind of see the little flow of the leg shape. Keep this in mind when you are drawing a leg. So at this angle, for this pose, we really have to pay attention to those very, very important curves of the thigh and calf. And for the pointed foot, I like to accentuate the top of the foot, make it a little curve. It looks very feminine and pretty. And notice how the other arm, the character's left arm, is kind of at a perspective. So her arm is furthest from us, so that hand is a little small, and so on and so forth. So notice the different sizes between her 2 arms. The arm furthest from us looks skinny and smaller because it's farther from us, so it's in perspective. I really love poses like this. They're just so elegant and so pretty and so feminine. So here it is, guys. What do you think? Was this one fun for you? It was fun for me. So guys, pose number 4. I think I may have saved the hardest one for last, guys. So get ready. We're going to do a lot of planning, a lot of mapping out the body. And we're going to be doing a little bit more perspective for this pose than a few of the other ones. Notice how both of his arms are in 2 different perspectives and both of his legs are in 2 different perspectives. So really map this out, guys. 2 eggs for the torso. Figure out the angle and tilt of his hips and shoulders. And remember, his legs are in perspective. So here's the side view of the leg. And here's the slightly more forward angle of the leg, the thighs. Okay, think of them as like soda cans, if you can, at a tilt. You know what I mean? So we're able to see the top of the soda can. Think of it in that way. Do you see it right there? Even his shorts are curving to the shape of his thigh, and that really helps out with the perspective. So the calf is facing us, so that looks normal. It looks like a full frontal, but the thigh is shorter on one leg. And then we've got the opposite thing happening on the other leg, where the thigh is facing us and looks long, but then the calf is short. You really want to pay attention to all these little details. Pay attention to the folds. Pay attention to the shape of the shorts, because everything is going to help us really communicate that perspective. And here you go, guys. Oh my gosh. Was this one hard for you guys? And guys, if you enjoy the darker side of mythology and folklore from around the world, please give my manga a chance. Shipping begins October 6th, guys. Thank you so much for your support. So that's it, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy the video and you found it useful, please give it a big thumbs up. Please take care, God bless, and do not be afraid to nerd out. Take care, guys, and see you next Thursday. Oh, you're so sweet. You're so sweet. Give me that face.